What is up, Green Bay Packers fans, and welcome back to the Daily Draft, brought to you by Brewski Light Lager from our good friends at Badger State Brewing, just minutes away from Lambeau Field in beautiful Green Bay, Wisconsin. They've got all sorts of really fun stuff coming up as we approach draft week. Yes, I did say draft week. They've got stuff going on at Badger State starting on April 22nd. Go check out our friends today. I am joined by the great Jacob Morley. Jake, how are you doing, man?
Dude, I'm doing good. We're getting
Yeah.
close. I'm at the point in the year, and I think everyone that does like kind of what we do is just ready for it to be here. I feel like we're
Yeah.
talking a lot of the stuff we're talking about is stuff that we've talked about already. We're starting to rehash and recycle stories. Like let's start getting the picks in. We're ready. We've been ready. I think
I
teams have been ready. So
I agree.
let's do the dang
Um,
thing.
we've had a little run here of positions I would say that they're maybe not so interested in, and this one I think there's more of a chance, and that is linebacker. We're breaking down off-ball linebackers and um, starting things off with Green Bay's situation or need. I mean, they have a guy. They have a guy, right? Edgerrin Cooper is a guy. They picked him in the second round last year after a little baby trade down, I think from 41 to 45, and that's a dude. At the weak side linebacker position, they've got one. At the Mike, Quay remains really frustrating, not yet a part of any long term plan. More polarizing now, I think, than he's ever been in the sense that you do have more positivity surrounding Quay. Some people are, I don't know, maybe it's some public relations stuff. I didn't notice any big improvements, but the narrative, I think, has changed a little bit on him. And then
Here's
the
what
third
that is.
linebacker, or go
I was
ahead.
just this is what in my opinion, what that is. Uh, People love Jeff Hafley, rightfully so. Jeff Hafley said Quay's good. Quay's good. I think that's where a lot of that comes from, and it's the belief in Coach Hafley to be able to get something out of him. And I think there were a little bit baby signs of maybe that coming to fruition last year with a coach like Hafley. So I think that's where most of that stems from. And, it just kind of depends how you feel about Hafley. Like, do you think he's going to be able to get Quay to hit his head on his ceiling? If he does, that's cool. That'd be a really good linebacker. But I'm with you on him. Frustrating mostly. The highs are high. Like he's made plays, no doubt about it. But the lows are also low. He needs to find some consistency, I
To
think.
to me too. I mean, linebacker is such an instinctual position. Like, how many times have we seen a linebacker come out and have the type of season that Edgerrin Cooper just did? Like, Blake Martinez was ready to go right away. And I'm not saying Blake was like an all pro, but like he had some athletic limitations. He was more of a 6 RAS guy. And Martinez maybe isn't the best example of all time, but like how many times have we seen rookie linebackers just okay, ready to go? Like Ivan Pace Jr. for the Vikings. Boom, ready to go. Like
How many
it's
times, and then also conversely, how many times have you seen a linebacker? Oh, they had to wait 2 years and then they were good. That's
never.
not really a thing. You
No.
know, if you're good, you're
Never.
good. It's kind of like running back, where it's like
Yeah.
you don't take a running back and stash him for 3 years and go, we're developing him. These guys need to be able to play right away, and if they can't,
Right.
that's usually a red flag.
That's
Tyron Hopper,
that
is
that's
he going
why
to develop
the
in year two, Ross? Is he going to develop in year two? We'll see.
that's why the Quay thing is like, I don't know, man. It's not a normal career arc. I'll put it to you that way. Third linebacker, when there is a third linebacker, seems to be McDuffie again. Christian Welch returned, which I would not have cut him last year. And then there is a Tyron Hopper. Tyron Hopper, top 100 pick from last year. That was the one, like, we were on cloud nine. Um, I didn't I didn't have a super high grade on Bullard, but I was willing to see the vision. Loved the Morgan pick. Liked the Morgan pick. Loved the Cooper pick. Loved the Marshawn Lloyd pick. Like, through the roof for the Marshawn Lloyd pick. And then the Hopper pick came through, and I remember the chat was just like,
What?
"Oh,
What? It really was. That was the vibe of like, oh, Goody, here he goes again. He's heating up, and then it was, oh,
okay,
and hopefully we're wrong. I hope
yeah,
I hope to high heavens that Tyron Hopper is the best player ever this year, but we'll see.
Yes, we will. So as far as like what I would see as their need, I mean, I would love to see a Mike. I would like to see them move Quay outside, maybe on a 1-year deal after this, or just move on. And that would create a need in the middle. You would want like a steady hand, a steady force, and I think there is that player in this draft. But I think you'd want the steady hand, the steady force in the middle to allow Edgerrin Cooper to do Edgerrin Cooper things, because that is the one guy that they definitely have. I would even maybe try to draft that guy and replace McDuffie with Quay and have a little bit more of a dynamic player at that second outside linebacker spot, because I think you could let Quay and Edge do some pretty fun stuff if you didn't have Quay like trying to process the defense, which is just not how I would use them. But that's not how the coaches feel. It's not what they did last year, and it's kind of, I guess, time to move on from there. This class overall, it's not great. It just isn't. There's a couple of tweener types in Jihad Campbell and Jalen Walker, types where it's like, okay, could they burn off the edge a little bit, but are they, because Abdul Carter's a tweener, but Abdul Carter, like, we know, because I mean he's played off. I mean, Abdul Carter's closer to Micah Parsons than he is to these other guys. I think these other guys, it's like, well, maybe they could turn the edge a little. Maybe they could be, plus linebackers, but then can they cover? Right? If you're some questions that I would have with Jihad Campbell and Jalen Walker. Carson Schwezinger seems to be the jewel as far as like a 3-down guy, as first, second, third down. Not necessarily a pass rush dude, but somebody who is not lost in space, can play the other 2 downs. And then I think after that, there's some really specific guys. Stutzman, 2 down. Bassa from Oregon, love him, coverage. Demetrius Knight, 2 down. Chris Paul Jr., love him, coverage. But they're like specific archetypes as you kind of move through this class. You could say, did Goody take 2 linebackers because this class stinks? You'd be glad, I guess, if you had a little bit more faith in what Tyron Hopper was.
Yeah, I mean, I'd feel really good about it if they would have taken. This is going to hurt your feelings if they would have taken Peyton Wilson instead of Hopper, but they didn't. So here we are. But I think I actually don't hate this class for what it is and for what Green Bay is going to need. Green Bay does not need to find a starter in this year's class. But I think there are guys, like you had mentioned, there's guys that can do things for you, that have specific skill sets that you might like, and special team value, a lot of that. There's a lot of good athletes in this year's class. I'm looking at our list of Packer people linebackers, and I mean, heck, there's almost 20 guys with an 8+ RAS in this year's draft class, which just means they can move. It doesn't really mean anything beyond that. But if you're a linebacker that can move, like, you're going to have special teams value. I don't know about like the instinctual stuff, because like you said, linebacker is one of those positions where you can be, not a good athlete and be a stud. I mean, there are throughout NFL history, there's guys in the NFL that you look at them and say, wow, that guy was they're like Hall of Fame guys, like Zach Thomas. That guy's a Hall of Famer. You would look at him and be like, that, what? He's like 5'9", but he just was so instinctual. I'm there's other, like London Fletcher, another guy for the Bills, played forever. Small guy, instinctual, just could put his body in the spot that it needed to be at the time it needed to be at. And that's the linebacker position. And it doesn't matter if you can run a 4.3 if you're running the wrong direction, or if you're taking false steps. It really doesn't. So it's just weird. And historically speaking, with the draft, the NFL is not good at identifying these guys. They're just not.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of that is because they do get infatuated with the athleticism, which I get. You want a guy to be an athlete. Those guys are usually the ones that are the best, but you need to have the instinct piece as well. It's something you can't teach. I think NFL coaches sometimes are overconfident in their ability to teach guys. And then they get burned. And then that's why they're looking for new jobs sometimes, is because you get a guy that can, 6'5", 250, runs a 4.4, has all the athletic testing, can't really play football, but these coaches will say, well, give him to me. I'll teach him how to play football. And a lot of times they just can't. So that's where we're at.
You're still talking about Quay.
I didn't mention Quay, but yes.
Anyway, what are the Packers like? Let's get to the brief tiering discussion. What are the Packers like?
I mean, they like athletes. That's like everyone else, at this position. With linebacker, they have been a little bit more, around all over the place. Last year, Tyron Hopper was a tier 1 athletic fit. Edgerrin Cooper, it wasn't. And actually, Edgerrin Cooper is like the highest player they've ever taken with just a flat out disqualifying number. And his broad jump wasn't very good. I think with Edge, though, they thought that's really the only thing he didn't test well in was his broad jump. And I think they care about the broad jump. But I also think they have the intelligence to look at a player and say, well, yeah, he didn't score good in that, but he still was a freakazoid athlete that just maybe he just didn't jump well that day. I don't know. But they love broad jump. They love the high RAS score. Outside of that, it's tough to glean like what they really like, because they've taken guys that have tested all over the place. They've taken guys size-wise that have been big, have been small. They've taken guys with length, taken guys with short arms. I mean, so it is tough to say really what they like at that position, which I think is probably a good thing, because what that tells me is they are willing to look at a guy, especially at the linebacker position, and say, yeah, maybe this guy doesn't hit box, doesn't check this or that, but we just think he's a really good football player and we want him on our team. So
and they've done that too, because and sometimes it's later, but like Hopper 7.42, speaking in relative athletic score terms, 7.42 Hopper, 7.32 McDuffie, 6.42 Blake Martinez, 5.82 Desmond Bishop. They have definitely taken guys and played them, because we're talking about guys that have played plenty who are not, super high level athletes. Same. They spent a reasonably high pick on Sam Barrington. Not a super high pick, but I think it was like a 5th rounder.
DJ Smith, another guy. Yeah.
Horrific
Smaller.
testing for DJ Smith. So it's a position where, yes, you do have your, Oren Burks, crazy, Ty Summers, crazy, Clay, crazy, AJ Hawk, crazy, Quay, crazy, really, really high level. But I think they're potentially trying to throw those instinct darts too. It's like, well, maybe this guy just knows ball.
I said earlier, you usually don't see linebackers that develop in year 3 or 4. Oren Burks might be the anti that statement. Not that Oren Burks is like some all-pro, but he has turned himself into a pretty nice player.
If he was still with the Packers, he'd be a good 3rd-round pick. People talk about Oren Burks like he's some crazy bust. This many contracts and this many plays in the playoffs, like he just was a good 3rd-round pick. Now, not necessarily a good 3rd-round pick for the Packers because he didn't contribute to the Packers. But as far as just like talent identification, he has exceeded at this point what you would ask for from a 3rd-round pick.
Yep.
But anyway, why should people buy the draft guide? Please tell me.
I mean, I think the people that have it, they know, like, their comments we're getting whenever they're like, I just saw a guy say like, hey, whenever I see a mock draft for the Packers, I get out my draft guide and I look at it to see, like, is that actually plausible? Is that something that the Packers would actually do historically? And I think that's how you use it. You look at it and say, hey, when all these national writers are talking about people, it's tough to be a national writer and cover all 32 NFL teams. It just is. You're not going to be as well-versed in that team as people that, cover them on a day-to-day basis like you, me, and Dorf do. And that's not to say we're better than anyone or anything. It's just we do. We're nerds about this stuff. And if you want draft content specifically related to your Green Bay Packers, that's the book you need because that's exactly what it's going to be. Dane Brugler just dropped the Beast, last week, and that's a phenomenal draft guide. If you don't have that, you should get that. but Dane is not going to be able to talk about. Let me give you an example of a player here. Dane is not going to be able to talk about Stone Blanton, linebacker from Mississippi State, 268th in the guide. He's not going to be able to talk about specifically how Stone Blanton fits with the Green Bay Packers. So that's something that you'll get out of the Packers draft guide, and that's why you need it.
Absolutely. The guy seems like it's Schwezner, right? Like,
Oh, yeah.
just
That's
because
I love him.
he can do everything. I think he can play Mike, has the size to play Mike. UCLA, right? I mean,
Former walk-on, yeah.
But like Dayton Jones, Jonathan Franklin, they've done the UCLA stuff plenty.
Clark, yep.
Kenny Clark. So
if Sam Seal walks into that room and says, "This is the best player on the board, I love him," I think
I don't know if they have a 2025 plan, except I guess that he could start over McDuffie in base. But I think it becomes your 2026 plan pretty quick, and you don't have to extend Quay.
Oh, I don't think they're going to take Carson where he's going to be drafted. If they do, I think he supplants Quay by the end of training camp. And I'm not saying that to be
dude. I just think they would never do it. They have not proven that they will penalize Quay for anything.
They would put their thinking to the test on
sure.
That. They would have to put him on the table. Like, do you really like him as much as you say that you do? Because Schlesinger is better than him.
Yeah,
like he just is. Yeah, and you watch him play, and maybe this we talk about the instincts. He reminds me of like a Bobby Wagner in his prime at Seattle, where he knows the play. He knows that's what I mean. He was a former walk-on that got on the field because of his instincts, and then just so happened to develop into a really, really good athlete. He's a guy that can play for my football team any day of the week. I think him next to Edgerrin Cooper would be a blast, because if there was one knock on Edgerrin Cooper coming out, it was kind of the instinct part, which I thought was a little bit weird. You watch him play, and I thought at Texas A&M, it was more just like, man, they're just asking him to go hunt, which is what he's still best at, and why I think Carson next to him would be really, really fun. Because then guess what? Go get the quarterback, Quay. Just go get the ball. Don't think about anything else. Carson's going to clean up everything else because he's going to be in a position to do it. That would be a fun pick. That's one of my like off the wall picks for the Packers at 23 that I think a lot of people would be upset about, but I think they'd be getting a really good player if they did that. I don't think they will.
23 would be insane to me.
If he's there in round 2, I would have zero issue. I would be giddy. I would be giddy about him in round 2.
Sure. I'd be pretty upset in round 1.
Yeah, you would.
I would.
Right.
I think depth is a complete question mark, and they literally need bodies. I mean, from a like running a training camp practice standpoint, like they need linebackers.
Right. That's where like the Isaiah Simmons visit. I think that's a get your ducks in a row. If you don't land a guy you like in the draft, then you bring him in, and it's that for that reason. You need bodies. You just need guys that can play. If he doesn't make the team, he doesn't make the team. But that is why I think they will take a linebacker in this year's draft class.
I agree. I don't know how early, but I do agree. Yeah, I think it's going to happen.
Not top 100.
So you mentioned they haven't signed Isaiah Simmons yet, to anyone's knowledge. Late guys that we like, Jack Kaiser. I like him from Notre Dame. Tested as a better athlete than I thought he would be. I wouldn't mind Danny Stutzman. I don't know if you'd qualify him as late, but like he ran way better than I thought he would, and I think he could play Mike. He was the lead communicator for that defense. Oklahoma's defense wasn't particularly good, but Venables is a good defensive coach, like comes from a decent coaching tree at the linebacker position. And I think could, maybe if you take him off the field on third down or whatever, that's fine. Maybe that makes it more difficult for him to be the communicator if you are taking him off the field on third down. But, if you don't have to spend a top 100 pick on him, I think Danny Stutzman's a pretty good idea. But I like Jack Kaiser from Notre Dame quite a bit.
Here's a guy but this guy, I don't know why he's not getting talked about more, and that's Teddy Buchanan out of Cal. Cal's got a bunch of really fun defensive players in this year's draft class. Buchanan is a transfer. He only played 1 year for the Golden Bears. He was a Cal Poly guy before that, or UC Davis, one of those two. And he played there. He tested extremely well at the combine. I mean, he's a high 4.5, low 4.6 guy, jumped 40 inches in the vert. But then you turn on his film, and you're like, okay, well, you just talked about he's an athlete, but not a football player. Wrong. Like this guy, you watch him play, you talk about instincts. Like he is kind of if you don't land Schlesinger in rounds 1 or 2, if you want a player that's maybe a tier below that, but also can do a lot of the same stuff, that's Teddy Buchanan, because he's very proficient in the passing game. He can cover. Just like Carson, he can get moved in the run game if you get a body on him, just like most linebackers, honestly. But at UC Davis, in his 3 years there, he had 8 interceptions. He is a guy that gets his hands on a ton of passes. I think he had several forced fumbles, 3 forced fumbles in his career, had 5 sacks for Cal last year. Really fun player, someone that I think maybe could go higher than what people are talking about. Could be a surprise, like 2nd-round pick. But if he's sitting there in rounds 3 or 4 and they call his name, I'd be thrilled with Teddy Buchanan.
All right, good to know. Here we go. Last question. Do they take a linebacker in the first 4 rounds?
Maybe.
Wow,
some of the other ones were like, yes, no. This one I think is tough, because is it a huge need? No, but they do need bodies. And if there's a guy sitting there around 3 or 4 that they really like, I bet they take him. And so I would say, I'm going to say yes. Yes. I'm not surprised if it's no, but I'm going to say yes. They take a guy in the first 4 rounds.
I'm gonna say no. I think they probably take 2, to be honest, or potentially take 2, but I think they're late. I just think they feel like with the Welch signing, they probably have some things covered. The way that they do business, they're probably not moving on from Tyron Hopper in their minds yet, and you have 3 starters. I just think there's other things that they probably feel like they need to do. But with you, I wouldn't be surprised if the answer is yes. And I mean, my answer is no, but I would not be surprised by yes. Guys, thanks so much for watching or listening. If you're on the podcast side, drink Badger State, buy the draft guide, and go Pack Go.